Hello and welcome to another episode of the Accountant Success Secrets podcast. I'm Philippa Haynes of Insight 101.
And I'm Mark Lee of Bookmark Lee. This podcast showcases and celebrates successful accountants who've been running their own practice for a good few years and who we think can inspire and encourage other accountants in practice around the UK.
We ask them to share their stories, including the highs, the lows, and what they've learned along the way. Our aim is to provide some fundamental insights for you, our loyal listener. If you'd like to share your story in a similar way, do please get in touch with Mark or myself.
Now, this podcast is sponsored by Pinnacle, a trusted outsourcing partner with over 100 clients in the UK and Ireland. Pinnacle's CEO, Mayank Pandya, is a chartered accountant based in London, and he has a passion to encourage innovation and excellence in the accounting profession. Pinnacle has offices in the UK and offshore delivery centres across India, employing over 250 high-quality staff. With a strong focus on quality assurance, Pinnacle has helped many UK accounting firms to scale their capacity and operations. To find out more, please visit www.pinnacleoss.co.uk. You'll also find the link online wherever you're listening to this podcast.
Great. So on to today, and we are delighted to introduce Alicia Allen. Alicia qualified as AAT in 2011 and started her own practice, AMA Bookkeeping, in Southampton as a sideline in 2015. She made it full-time in July 2020 and changed the business name to AMA Accountancy. In her spare time, she enjoys boxing, so we'll find out a little bit more about that, I hope.
Indeed. Welcome, Alicia. Is there anything else you'd like to add by way of introduction?
No, I'm fine, thanks.
Good stuff.
Absolutely. As you know, we aim to keep the podcast to around 30 minutes, and we do that by trying to focus the discussion around a few key questions. Sometimes we're more successful than on other occasions. I'll start with a combination question. What attracted you to start up your own practice? And then how did you go about doing that?
Okay, so I kind of always wanted to do it. I always wanted to work for myself. Obviously, we've had a conversation that I came from a self-employed background, so I was a taxi driver before I qualified in accountancy. So yeah, obviously very different. But I wasn't that person that just handed my accounts over and had no interest. I wanted to understand it. Obviously wanted to learn how to say tax as much as possible, same as everyone else. But yeah, I just found I had an interest in it, and I also found that there was a bit of a gap in the market. So when I'd gone into practices, I felt very intimidated by some of the people that I came across. So yeah, I just wanted to come across as an accountant that fits those sorts of people, and that maybe literally are completely clueless about tax and stuff. Kind of figured it probably wouldn't happen for a very long time due to mortgages, children, all the rest of it, financial commitments that we all have. And then I started doing it as a sideline, as you said. And then as I got more and more qualified, I took it further and then got made redundant in 2020, and here I am.
Fantastic.
Brilliant. I don't think I've ever spoken to a taxi driver turned accountant or bookkeeper. So that's brilliant. I love it.
And if we weren't on the podcast, I have two taxi driver stories I have to share with you, but now is not the time. It would be relevant, but So how did you build up the practice, and to the extent that you could afford to do it full time?
So I'll be honest, I completely winged it. So I got made redundant in July 2020. Obviously, it was during COVID, so it was a bit of a nightmare. And I just, to be honest, I'd had a couple of, my last two jobs weren't the best. I didn't have the best bosses, which with hindsight has helped me because I'd like to think it makes me a better boss. But yeah, so I kind of decided that you can't get sacked, you can't get treated badly if you're working for yourself. So luckily I had the practice license in place already, so I had the insurance, so it was good to go. I literally spent 2 days, because I'm not that great with tech. I don't know how to do bulk emails, or I didn't back then. So I literally copied and pasted an email to every single accountant that was within about a 20-mile radius. If they were on yale.com, they got an email from me asking if they had any work to outsource. luckily, a really nice guy. I didn't realise it was him at the time. That was based locally. Passed my details on to someone else. They got me someone who had a bit of a nightmare bookkeeper, kind of worked in my favour. They had years worth of stuff to catch up on, and then it kind of built from there. And then obviously word got around, and Facebook, local posts. I started off with 10 clients. I'm now up to 400 and something, 442. Yeah.
Wow. And you're saying that you've...
Are those clients other accountants, or are they...
Yes, all my clients now are clients, and they're not other accountants. We don't have any other work that we're outsourcing anymore. That lasted, I think it's about a year, but I worked a lot of hours putting myself out there to begin with, because as all these things, you kind of realise at some point they're probably going to get someone in-house, which is what happened. But by then, luckily, I built it up enough for it to not be an issue, thankfully.
But you were saying that you've got... over a year, you've got 100 new clients. That's pretty amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where did they all come from?
All referrals of Facebook. Apparently, I don't see it very often. I don't know if it's because it's my own advert or what, but apparently my face is all over Facebook locally. So yeah, I get tagged in a lot of posts as well, recommendations from other clients, things like that. So yeah, most of it tends to come from referrals, really.
And did you say the most of those referrals, including the references from Facebook, tend to be local, or you've got clients all over the country?
Yeah, so most of them are local, but I do have some really random clients. I've got a couple up north. I've got a couple up Chichester way, which is obviously not completely local, to Southampton, not obviously the furthest distance away. But yeah, I don't specifically have to keep it local, but they just, the way my marketing is, it tends to hit more local people.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Interesting. So, I mean, I usually ask, what have you learned along the way? And I think, you may have another perspective on this, but just picking up on your comment about bad managers and, how you kind of work in your own firm, what have you learned over the years then?
So yeah, obviously the bad manager thing, I try to be more of a friend than a manager. I hate that, having to tell someone what to do. I'm not that person. I'm still very much learning about that, the trying to obviously manage things, be a friend, but get the right balance with it. I think the main thing is just be yourself. Don't try and be someone you're not. We're all human. It's just be yourself.
Yeah, I mean, because some people say being a friend, sometimes it can be a bit tricky. So I guess it's finding the balance. How have you managed to do that, do you think? Or is it an ongoing learning experience?
It's an ongoing learning experience. I've been very fortunate in the fact that all my staff have come to me through a friend, or they have been a friend. I'm not going to lie, I am a massive control freak. It has been pointed out on multiple occasions by various people, clients included. And yeah, I do struggle to let go of parts of my business. Obviously, I built it up from nothing. It's my little baby. Like, I'd hate for it to go wrong. So I've been a bit of a control freak. So yeah, the people involved in my business have either been close friends of friends, or they have been good friends. Like one of them, was one of my best friends during secondary school. So yeah, it is difficult because obviously we have that friendly relationship to begin with. But yeah, I think it's just having those conversations and being honest with people. I like to hope that I balance it, but luckily I've not had any situations where I've really had to go into boss mode. So
that's very good.
How many staff do you have, Alicia?
So there's 5, including myself, in the business.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, I guess if you have people that know you really, really well, it can go one of two ways, can't it? You can either sort of do something where the friendship breaks up, or they are that good a friend that they go, Alicia, you being a control freak, just
words they use, but yeah.
That's good. I mean, it's a great quality to have. I would imagine, when you're, looking at other people's finances.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Very important. And in terms of mistakes that you might have made, what did you learn from them, and how did you correct them?
So I did have to think about this one, and I think the biggest mistake I made is being too friendly with clients. So obviously, like I said, it's important to me to be friendly with my staff. Obviously, you're spending a lot of time together. It's, you're close, you have to be. With clients, so I always tell my business as being that business that's a little bit different. We'll work around the client. So, I do understand a lot of people are busy 9 to 5. They can't always do a meeting Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. We'll do an evening meeting if necessary. I do try and adapt to people's businesses. Equally, sometimes when you get that friendly relationship, or you are that adaptable, they then take it to the other extreme, where you're getting WhatsApps at 10 o'clock at night. You're getting Facebook messages on your personal page at all sorts of times, day and night. If you're not responding ridiculously quickly, they're chasing you. And I think the biggest thing I learned from that is, again, try and keep that boundary, be friendly, but maybe not too friendly. Also, absolute game changer was getting a separate work number that you turn off when you're done. Was an absolute game changer.
Yeah, I think it's those small things, though, that actually make a massive difference, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, and I know people. We've had a bit of work done at the house, and one of the guys always says, I don't give clients my WhatsApp, because that is their sort of personal thing. So, and that's fine. You just have to find your parameters, don't you?
Yeah. So when I got my separate number, I separated my WhatsApp. So I've got WhatsApp business, and I've got WhatsApp, like the personal one, that probably about 10 people have a number for. And it's, you can mute notifications, you can put autoresponders on there and everything. So it just really separates everything. So obviously, if you choose to look at it, that's kind of on you at that point. But they then feel that they can still message you whenever. But equally, it doesn't become your problem if they decide to do that, late at night.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I think sorry, Philippa, I was just going to say, I think what's particularly clever there and worth listeners noting is you are a very friendly person, and you come across as a friendly person, and you're friendly with your staff, and you endeavor to be friendly with clients, but not overly friendly. But your LinkedIn profile, your Facebook page, your website, none of them overpromise anything in terms of being friendly or that sort of stuff. It only becomes apparent when people are talking to you, which means you can set the boundaries which you've recognized you need to do. So well done on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So, 400 clients and an additional 100 seems like a lot to me. And I would imagine that, managing that is a big learning in itself. How have you done that? Because you said you're not the most techie person. So tell us a bit about that. How have you done it?
So we currently manage it on Accountancy Manager. That was a game changer. Again, I try to avoid it. Obviously, starting out, you're trying to keep costs low, all the rest of it. I think I got to about 100 clients when I was like, no, I need something. A spreadsheet's not cutting it anymore. I'm not the best with Excel, where, I've got a colleague who's amazing with it. She could probably run a whole practice off of it. I can't. So yeah, Accountancy Manager was the one for me. Obviously got everything on there set up. So we've got all our deadlines, it all flags up, all the rest of it. The biggest thing for me really with managing that amount of clients is starting to filter out the ones that are a bit of a nightmare. We don't have too many, but we do every now and then, I'll have a bit of a clear out where you're just like, they've got to go.
And how do you manage that then? Because that's interesting, because that's a difficult conversation, isn't it?
It is, but there's normally events that have led up to that. I'm not someone that will just go, they're a little bit difficult with their paperwork, but it's not up together. There's always a bigger reason. So one in particular that I got rid of, I'm not gonna lie, I tried for about a year to get rid of them. It's a little bit of it. It was almost like a toxic relationship where they're great for a few weeks, make all the promises, then they go back to being a nightmare. And it went on and on and on. And in the end, I was like, look, you know, at this point, I'm really sorry, but it's not working. We can't give you what you're expecting, which was, you know, they were very needy. They wanted instant responses. You know, you can't do that. No one can do it. Even if you're a one-man band with 50 clients, you can't do that because, you know, you've got meetings, you've got business to run, you've got a life to have. You can't do that. It's unreasonable. So, you know, at that point, I was like, look, you know, by this day, we're not doing anything anymore. You have to find someone else. And at that point, they did. We've had another client who just literally just didn't give us any information. And I'm like, you know, you're going to put us in an awkward position. I don't like missing deadlines. I never have done unless it's because someone's not giving us the stuff, you know. So, yeah, gone. And they always expect it because, like I said, there's always a bigger picture, you know, a bigger reason as to why that's happened. So it's never a complete shock to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's so important to do that. And of course, as the practice grows, it's a bit easier to do that. You know, when you've got 50 clients or 100 clients, losing one, whether it's a few hundred quid or a couple of thousand quid, is a big chunk. It's always, you know, it's a lot of money regardless, but it's a lot easier when you've got a decent sized practice.
It is, but what I've always found, no matter how big the client is, so I have recently got rid of one that was a big client, but actually I find because you've got rid of that stress that's on your mind because of that client, you generally end up finding other clients that pretty much made that up anyway. Every time I've lost one, I've been very fortunate that I've pretty much made the same or equivalent back within a few days, you know, with signing someone up that isn't that type of person. So I think it's just when you're starting out, it's very different because, like you say, you've got less clients. You can't be as picky because you've got bills to pay. You're trying to build your business. You don't want to get a bad reputation for getting rid of people. But as it grows, it just comes to that point where you grow as a person as well because you realise it's not personal. You know, one accountant isn't necessarily the right fit for one business. So you have to find that person that you get on well with, where you're going to click and. You know, it's normally mutual. I've never had anyone where, you know, they've been crying about it or anything. They've been kicking off because I've got rid of them, you know, but it just gets to that point where you can't have those people anymore. You know, like I said, even from a stress perspective, I would rather lose tens of thousands of pounds than be ridiculously stressed. I mean, one of them that I got rid of, literally I was waking up in the night thinking about their emails. You know, if the name popped up in my email, you know, my heart would sink. I'd get that horrible sick feeling, you know, and I just thought, you know what, no amount of money is worth it. It's really not. You can't work on your business and grow it and be a good person if, you know, you've got that feeling.
You're absolutely right. It's a conversation I have with many of the accountants that I mentor, and it comes up in the Sole Practice Club about getting rid of clients. And I think what you've just summarised there is exactly why it's so important, and not to be scared that there'll be no new clients to replace them, because if you carry on doing what you've been doing, if it's been generating clients, you know that you will, and you'll feel so much better afterwards, as you say.
Exactly. And I think you just need to remember that it's not personal. It's just not personal. I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've learned in business is that, you know, whether it's, you know, not that, you know, we've been very fortunate that we've not had it often, but, you know, if someone's kicking off at you about something not being done, like, it's not personal. They just want to vent. You know, if someone leaves, you know, we've had the odd client leave, normally because they've realised they need someone that's maybe a smaller company that can give them a bit more time or whatever. You know, if they're quite needy in new business or whatever, I think it's just really important to realise that it's not personal.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things you talked about that's really important is you've got to be able to get on with these people as well. So they need to be like-minded in some way, shape or form. And we talk a lot about the ideal client, and I do work with my own clients to think about, you know, who that might be. But do you have some kind of ideal, or is it just the person, we need to get on with them, or is there another profile that you look for?
It's just the person, to be honest. If I can have a good conversation with them, then that's it really, because, you know, even if they don't understand, you know, the ins and outs of business, you know, they might be quite needy, you know, with things like software, you know, obviously with MTD coming in, we're encouraging a lot of people to go onto software and things. A lot of them are completely clueless with it. I don't mind sitting and having a conversation with them, showing them how to use stuff, but you have to be able to get on with that person. They have to be willing to learn and be adaptable and take on board, you know, what you're saying. If they're very difficult and they're set in their ways, and you know, that person's not going to get on with me. Like it's not going to work.
I think that's so true across life and business generally, in many respects, particularly when it's sort of there's a professional relationship, as there is between accountant, bookkeeper, and client. Just thinking back to when you started, Alicia, and you were working with accountants, and now you're doing bookkeeping and accountancy and tax and limited company accounts and all the rest of it. Do you have some clients who use you for some of the work and they have a larger accountancy firm, or you've managed to avoid those sorts of clients?
No, we did starting out. So starting out, like my first big client, I was doing the bookkeeping, I was doing the VAT returns, I was doing payroll, and my a friend of mine, the guy that obviously introduced them to me, who's now become a friend, he was doing their actual accounts. I don't think there might be one client, I think, who's kind of it was part of the original group of people. There was like one business left over that guy still does the accounts for, that I do the bookkeeping for. But other than that, no, I don't think there's. Every now and then you get a situation, like I had one client who had like some massive sale of shares and stuff, and to be honest with you, that wasn't really my thing. So we did get another accountant involved in that, but we always have, it's the same group of people, so we all know each other. We all, you know, they're still there for me, you know, because obviously no one knows everything. So, you know, if there's things they're stuck on, they'll call me, you know, like I've taught them about software and things because they're a bit more old school, where they don't know the ins and outs of Xero and things, you know. I've had to teach one of them how to use Xero, which amazed me, you know. But then equally, if I've got a tax question, you know, they're CTA qualified, so I might go to them. Obviously, if they're a lot more experienced, a lot older than me, so they've had a lot more different situations that they've had to deal with. So we kind of, although we don't work together, we're still always there as that backup, which I think really helps in business as well, because sometimes you just need that sounding board.
Yeah, very, very much so. I think that's terrific. And do you want to ask your penultimate question, Philippa?
Yeah. Well, I was just waiting for a good time, because we've already talked about uniqueness in your business and how you think that, you know, the way that you serve your clients is quite unique. So, I mean, you've already kind of answered it to a certain degree, but is there anything else that you think kind of makes you stand out to those people who kind of choose you?
So I don't wear suits and stuff. I just dress as a normal person. I talk very normally. I'm very direct. I try not to use too much of the accountancy terminology, just because. And I did get a lot of hate on one post for this from one person locally. Like everyone else jumped in, they were like, "No, you know, this is what we need. This is what we need." But she's like, "Oh, you know, you do for that reason." I was like, "Oh, do you know what? Like, I probably wouldn't have you as a client anyway." It's great though, because it meant that I could do a post about it. So favor. But yeah, no, I'm just a very direct person. You know, I just say it how it is. I try not to use words that people don't necessarily understand. I just try and explain things, you know, without being patronising to them. Just try and be, you know, keep things as basic as possible. Give them, you know, the key points they need to know and need to understand.
Yeah. And do you think you were always like that, Alicia? Is that something you've learned?
Yeah, that's my taxi driver in me. Very direct, very live and direct.
Yeah, but that's what I was going to actually say. How's the sort of taxi driver in you sort of gone into what is now kind of quite a different profession? But yeah.
Well, she talks to clients over her shoulder all the time, obviously. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I think it's helped me, you know, with the personal skills, because obviously taxi driving, you know, I used to do weekend nights as well, so I was picking up drunk people, you know, people that need the best frame of mind necessary. So you kind of, when you're in that situation, and you do end up in some situations in that as well, you know, where it's quite frightening and quite intimidating, you know, and you realize you have to get on with these people, because if you don't, you could get hurt. It's awful to say, but you could. So you learn a lot of interpersonal skills, and I think that's probably what's really helped with my business, because there's not very many people I can't get on with. If I don't get on with someone. It's just, if I can't sit and have a conversation with someone, it's generally because they're quite a difficult person, maybe. Like I don't know, that sounds awful. It makes me sound like I don't think I can be difficult, but I'm sure I can. But generally I'm quite adaptable to different people, different types of people, from all walks of life. So I think that's sort of helped me a lot, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think, not wishing to steal your question, Mark, but that would probably be the secret to your success, really, which is I do love that, actually. That is such a brilliant insight in terms of managing people, because you're right, you're on the front line, aren't you?
Yeah.
It really is the front line. And so anything else, I suspect, pales into insignificance, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It's
So go on, Alicia.
So I was just going to say, there's not a lot of situations, especially now. Obviously, we're 4 years down the line. Obviously, I've learned a lot. Obviously, like I said, had the personal skills anyway. Or I like to think that I did. But obviously, as a business owner as well, you obviously learn a lot more things. And 4 years down the line, it's got to that point where, to be quite honest, there's not a lot that really scares me in terms of clients. In terms of growing a business, things petrify me every day, obviously, as you do, as you grow. Taking full-time members of staff on scares me, the commitment, like all of it, more because that someone's relying on you. But in terms of client situations or things that clients can say to me, it's got to that point, there's not a lot that bothers me anymore.
I think that is glorious. And this whole concept of transferable skills and recognizing that your interpersonal skills are a crucial element as to what's allowed you to grow the practice, I think is really important for others to recognize as well. I'm quite active in some of the Facebook groups for accountants and bookkeepers, and you see people talking about starting a practice, and they've got some experience working in an office, but they've got no idea about the skills they're going to need over and above being able to just do the work. And I think your examples there are terrific to help others recognise that. So thank you for sharing.
I think, I agree with you, Mark. And we talk to a lot of people on this podcast who they do fall into bookkeeping and accountancy for whatever reason. It just seems to be one of those kind of spaces. But I think going from taxi driver to this is actually, for you, is a real benefit, because the service aspect, the relationship and the communication aspect is a massive part of the job, isn't it? It is. Not everybody can do it.
Everything. Personality is everything. I always say, even with the staff that I've taken on and things, I would rather someone have a great personality than the experience, because experience, you're never going to have enough experience, qualifications, all that stuff, that can all be taught. Personality, that's something you pick up along the way from, life skills. So life skills is always going to be more important in your business than anything else.
Yep. You're absolutely right. One of our first interviewees, maybe it was the first, David Frederick, says much the same thing. He recruits for attitude and personality because he can teach good people whatever they need to learn from a technical perspective. And I think you're alluding to much the same point there.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And from my perspective, I totally agree, because with the brand work that I do, certainly with accountants and bookkeepers, it's about the human behind them, which actually creates that brand and that story. So I couldn't agree more. As always, we've come to the end of the 30 minutes, and I think we could always talk more, certainly about taxi driving and kind of what you've learned and how that translates. I think that is a real kind of juicy one. But for now, we probably just need to say, Alicia, how can we share contacts with people? How can they get in touch with you?
So our email address is info@amaaccountancy.com, and the phone number is 07982 837 605. And that's not my direct number, that's the office number.
Yes.
And I'd love the fact you're bucking the trend, because you've got an info at email address rather than a person.
So to be fair, the story behind that, just quickly, I did actually start out with my personal one, and then it just got again to too many clients. Where once Kerry came on board, my PA, I was like, no, we need to separate this because she needs to filter. There's so much that I don't need to see, you know, or that with that later date. I just never got any work done. When it came to me, I just never got any actual work done. So that was again another learning curve. Don't ever have a personal email address that goes out to everyone.
Unless it's the admin person or support person. I think that makes sense. Thank you for that. And Philippa, how can listeners find out more about you and Insight 101?
Well, yeah, before that, I think you're the only person as well who's given a phone number. So we really are talking about communication there, proper communication. So that's brilliant. But so I support accountants and bookkeepers to stand out so that they can create a brand story and marketing that attracts and inspires their ideal clients, ensuring that they build a path to the future that they want, whilst adding more value to their clients along the way. So you can find me on LinkedIn or on my website, www.insight101.co.uk. And Mark, how can listeners find out more about you and your Soul Practice Club?
Well, online everywhere. I'm Bookmark Lee. We have a bookmark, details on the back as well. If you ever see me live, do ask for one. I've always got them with me, because who uses business cards these days? I tend to support accountants who run their own practice with feeling isolated, frustrated and overwhelmed, or any combination of those. Some want one-to-one mentoring support, and some appreciate the camaraderie and support from my Soul Practice Club. A few want both. Full details on my website, bookmarklee.co.uk.
Brilliant. So before we go, we do need to give our thanks to the sponsor of this episode, Pinnacle Global Group, your trusted outsourcing partner. Do check out their website and let their CEO, Mayank, know how you heard about Pinnacle Global on the Accountant Success Secrets podcast. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please share the love online. Oh, I've gone croaky. Subscribe and leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify or YouTube, and let us have your feedback too.
Absolutely. It all helps to potentially broaden the reach of the podcast. And do please, as we said earlier, contact either Philippa or myself if you'd like to be interviewed on a future podcast. We're now booking into 2025, amazingly, or if there's someone you'd like to recommend that we interview. Thanks again to Alicia and to my brilliant co-host, Philippa. Until next time on the Accountant Success Secrets podcast, or anywhere else we might meet online or in real life. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.